Okay, welcome back to the Okay Not Okay podcast. I am Dr. O'Kay, and when Sport Zoo sent me this question, I asked him to switch days with me, and I decided to do Who's Next first. I just didn't want to tackle this one at all, so I delayed it as much as possible. Anyways, let's hear what Sport Zoo said. Doc, you seem to be quite unimpressed by Roman Reigns' return. Simple question. Why? Well, sometimes the simplest questions of the week are the most difficult ones, aren't they? Well, I guess we have to talk about Roman Reigns and his return to the WWE after a wonderful 4-month vacation. Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with giving you some statistics about Roman Reigns and his very lengthy WWE Championship reign. So first, we'll start what everyone knows that they keep telling you on TV. He was the Universal Champion for 1,316 days, and after he defeated Brock Lesnar and merged the titles, he was undisputed WWE Universal Champion for 735 days. But of course, you put those together for that full 1,316 days. He had a total of 30 successful title defenses and also 1 disqualification loss. So I don't know if you really want to count that as a title defense, but nonetheless, it was 32 matches with the title, including his loss to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. So this was a total of 1 title defense every 41.125 days, which is not too bad since there's a premium live event just about once every month. So that's just a little bit over that, so not terrible. But here is the kicker. From August 30th, 2020, when he gained the championship, until April 3rd, 2022, when he successfully retained it and gained the WWE title against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 38, he had 20 title defenses in 21 matches. So that was 581 days through that point, and he had 1 title defense match every 27.67 days. So pretty good, basically every 4 weeks, exactly on pace with the premium live event schedule. But starting on April 4th, 2022, the night after WrestleMania, and going all the way through until April 7th, 2024, which was WrestleMania 40, he had 10 title defenses plus the 1 loss for 11 total matches. So in 734 days, he had 1 title defense match every 66.73 days. So as you know, that means it took more than 2 months for every single title defense match. For comparison, 5 men in WWE had 11 or more title matches in 2023 alone. So not very good for Reigns right there. Now if you count non-title matches, he had 18 total matches from the night after WrestleMania 38 through WrestleMania 40. So that was 1 match every 40.78 days. Now for comparison, 13 wrestlers have already had 18 or more matches in 2024, with 9 on Monday Night Raw, 2 on SmackDown, 2 women on Monday Night Raw, and 2 women on SmackDown. And we have 5 more of them knocking on the door with exactly 17 matches. Now, Monday was day 218 of 2024. Now, comparing that to Reigns' 734 days to get to his 18 matches, I'd say these 13 wrestlers have done a pretty good job to get to 18. Now, if we look back to 2023 alone, Damian Priest led the entire WWE with 51 total televised matches for the year, which if you can count, you know that that is just under 1 match every single week. Pretty incredible stuff. And there were 33 men and 13 women who had at least 18 televised matches in 2023. So come on, Roman, you took over 2 years to get to 18 matches when 33 men and 13 women had that many in 2023 alone. Now, in traditional tag matches, we also want to know that Roman Reigns is pretty bad at them, as he had 4 of his 18 matches be traditional tags in that time span, and he went just 1-3, including a title loss with Solo Sikoa against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And his only win of those 4 traditional tags was at WrestleMania 40 on night 1, when The Rock made it pretty clear to the referee that if he counted, he would be fired. So if you count Reigns' loss in the tag team title match as well as the match that he lost at WrestleMania 40, he had 13 total title matches from WrestleMania 38 through WrestleMania 40. And at least one Bloodline member interfered in 12 out of 13 of those matches. That is a whopping 92.3%. His only clean win was against Riddle on SmackDown on June 17th, 2022, which happened to be his very first title match after WrestleMania 38. So that means all 11 of his most recent title matches have had Bloodline interference. 11 in a row. 11 in a row. Wow. However, we will note in 4 out of the 13 of those matches, the interference was technically legal, as they were for a last man standing match, a fatal 4-way match, a tribal combat match, and a Bloodline rules match. So even though they were legal, that doesn't necessarily mean it was fair by any means. And one more thing to note, in 6 out of 13 of the matches, which is 46.2%, amazingly, the referee was physically contacted and temporarily unable to perform his duties during some point of the match, which really opened the floodgates for the Bloodline to take control. So pretty uncoincidental for that to just keep happening, isn't it? So if you can't tell, I was just completely out on this title reign by Roman Reigns. He was so insecure that he demands confirmation of himself every single place he goes throughout the country and the entire world, and with the other members of his own group. Also, he has no problem punishing and banishing his own family through physical means in order to get his way and to stay in control. He will go to any length in order to retain what he thinks belongs to him. And certainly he was very cowardly for leaving for the last 4 months when he had no physical injury whatsoever after WrestleMania 40. He literally was the last person on the entire WrestleMania card to appear in WWE after WrestleMania 40. There were 46 total superstars who wrestled on either night 1 or night 2, or sometimes both, of the card, and even The Rock managed to show up the very next night congratulating Cody Rhodes for besting him and winning the championship. So, Roman Reigns, you were literally last. You simply are just unable to handle defeat. On top of that, we need to talk about what Roman Reigns did to Solo Sikoa in that he named him the tribal heir. So, when Roman Reigns decided not to show up because he was too butthurt to do so, what was Solo Sikoa supposed to do? He had to try to rebuild the bloodline to keep his family strong. But maybe Roman didn't like those tactics that he used. However, if Reigns didn't like that Solo had Jimmy get attacked and be injured, Roman had 4 months to do something about it, but he did absolutely nothing. If Roman Reigns didn't like Solo Sikoa adding Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, or Jacob Fatu, he could have done something about it for 4 months, 3 months, or 1.5 months, respectively, but he did absolutely nothing. If Roman Reigns didn't like what the new bloodline did to Paul Heyman and injuring him, he again had over a month to do something about it, But Roman Reigns couldn't even do that to help the poor old wise man. Well, what did the Bloodline do instead? Well, they rebuilt and they went out and won the Tag Team Championships. And not only that, Solo Sikoa was in position to potentially win the undisputed WWE Championship and bring it right back to the Bloodline where Roman Reigns lost it. However, Reigns simply could not handle anyone else having success in the Bloodline other than himself. So only at that point did Roman Reigns come back and stop Solo Sikoa. Well, you don't have to take my word to it. Let's just go to the tape and see just how bad this reign was. So before Payback, Roman Reigns returned to SmackDown with his new wise man, Paul Heyman, and was offered a contract to sign to be in the Universal Championship match at Payback. Well, Reigns and Heyman decided not to sign it, and it was not even until after 10 minutes into the match that Roman Reigns decided that, it looks like The Fiend just superplexed Braun Strowman and broke the ring, that he found it within himself that, okay, now seems to be a good time to sign this contract and pick the bones of The Fiend and Strowman to win this championship. And I don't know about you, I know I'm not a lawyer, even though the Sports Zoo just might be, but I have a feeling he would tell me that signing a contract after the match begins is not legal. I mean, it's not the Money in the Bank contract where that is legal to just interrupt any match and become a part of it. This was just the standard WWE contract. There's no way he should have been allowed to even enter this match. So Roman Reigns was truly a fraud from the very moment that he gained this title. So all 1,316 days of this reign were a fraud. So let's go through the timeline of Roman Reigns having this championship. Well, he did successfully defend the title 5 times before Royal Rumble in 2021, but that included beating his own family member, Jey Uso, into submission until he finally had to join him as his right-hand man. And he also beat Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens 2 times. Now, Owens got one more shot at Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble in a last man standing match. But the fix was apparently in this one. Kevin Owens smartly handcuffed Roman Reigns to a pole so that Reigns could not get up off of the floor, therefore he could not be the last man standing. However, when the ref counted all the way to 9, Reigns suddenly grabbed the referee and threw him into another pole, knocking the ref out cold. Reigns finally got his feet up off of the floor once Paul Heyman was at least able to loosen up the handcuffs enough for Reigns to get his feet under him. But at that point, it had already been 3 whole minutes since he was in handcuffs and on the floor. 3 minutes. How do you not have one 10 count in 3 minutes? Well, I'll tell you, a backup ref came in and he started counting, but mysteriously, he stopped after a 5 count. So Roman Reigns had all the time in the world to get up off of the floor from these handcuffs, and then he went on and guillotined Kevin Owens to win the match. His next match was at the Elimination Chamber in February of 2021, and Reigns was a total coward here. He refused to participate in the Elimination Chamber match, putting his title on the line inside the chamber. Instead, he only agreed to fight whoever the winner of that match was right after the chamber was over. So Daniel Bryan did win that match in a very difficult bout, including with a running knee against right-hand man Jey Uso, and he was totally spent after this match that Reigns sauntered in, started the match, and, well, Bryan was somehow able to put in a yes lock. However, Reigns was just too strong, and quickly guillotined Bryan to retain yet again. After that, Roman Reigns had a very difficult match against Bryan in a much more fair fight that took him almost 30 minutes to defeat Bryan, but he was able to get the job done, which took us to WrestleMania 37 Night 2 in April of 2021, when he would take on both Bryan and Edge in the main event. Well, Jey Uso helped him out both early and late in the match. Early on, he hit Daniel Bryan with 2 super kicks and threw him into the steel stairs, and also super kicked Edge to give Reigns an early advantage. About 20 minutes later into the match, Jey attacked Edge after Edge had concertoed Bryan, which then allowed Reigns to concerto Edge, and we know the saying after that, smash 'em, stack 'em, pin 'em, and that is what Reigns did, but that's still controversial, isn't it, to this day, in that he placed Edge on top of Bryan, so shouldn't Edge have gotten the pin here? I guess those are just the WWE rules, though they were never really specific about that. Nonetheless, I guess Reigns retained, so we move on. After 7 more successful title defenses post-WrestleMania, we finally get to Crown Jewel, so congrats for actually seeming like a somewhat fighting champion. He defeated Daniel Bryan once more, Cesaro, Rey Mysterio, Edge, John Cena, which surprisingly had no interference at SummerSlam, and 2 times against Finn Balor. But when we got to Crown Jewel, that was another story when he took on the Beast, Brock Lesnar. Well, Reigns had an incredibly lucky landing and a lot of help in this match when Lesnar F5'd Reigns right into a referee. And Reigns was knocked out cold by this F5, and the crowd chanted to 15 or 16 before the crowd stopped chanting and instead started booing, as Lesnar clearly had this match won. However, because the ref was knocked out, no such thing happened. However, Paul Heyman clearly conflicted between his prior relationship with Brock Lesnar and his current relationship as the wise man to Reigns. He threw the championship belt in between Lesnar and Reigns, and just as Lesnar appeared to gain control of the belt, both of the Usos came in and double super kicked him, with Reigns then picking up the championship belt and hitting Lesnar in the head with it. A new ref immediately came in and then counted to 3 for Reigns to somehow retain this one. Well, Reigns had one more very quick title defense against Sami Zayn on SmackDown in December, but that took us to the Royal Rumble in January of 2022, and this is where Reigns' own emotions got the best of him when he took on Seth Rollins. After a pretty good match, Rollins mocked Reigns by wanting the Shield fist bump, and Reigns was so enraged by this that he locked Rollins in the guillotine, and even though Rollins was able to grab the bottom rope, Reigns refused to let go and allowed the ref to count to 5, causing him to lose by disqualification. Of course, Reigns also continued to hold on well past that, and then grabbed a steel chair and hit him several times with it. Of course, knowing that he was clearly vulnerable, Reigns never allowed Seth Rollins to get another shot at the title. That takes us to WrestleMania 38, but he did defend the title against Goldberg, winning rather easily at Elimination Chamber. So WrestleMania 38 was a title unification match where WWE Champion Brock Lesnar took on the Universal Champion Roman Reigns. In this one, Reigns gained an advantage by raking the eyes of Lesnar and then pushing him right into the referee. And then he kind of form tackled him into the turnbuckle, squashing the referee. We can't really call that one a spear. It was not a true spear. That was, just kind of grabbed him and took him to the ropes. Anyways, both of them crashed into the ref and he was out yet again. Reigns then hit Lesnar with a low blow, and then he was given the championship belt yet again and hit Lesnar in the head with it yet again. Lesnar, however, had it in him to come back and put in the Kimura lock, but Heyman pushed the rope to Reigns so that Reigns was able to get Lesnar to have to let go of the hold. Well, right after that, Reigns took advantage and immediately hit the spear to retain the title and unify it with the WWE Championship to become the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Well, Reigns surprisingly did have that one clean title defense against Riddle in June, but that takes us to SummerSlam of 2022 in the third match between him and Brock Lesnar, and this time it was a last man standing match. And after that really cool moment when Lesnar lifted up the ring with a tractor, we had the Usos come out of the crowd to help slow down Lesnar. However, Lesnar still got the better out of both of the Usos until a few minutes later when they finally recovered and gave Lesnar a double super kick that slowed him down, and from there Reigns took advantage and the Usos assisted Reigns in burying Lesnar underneath the announce table and other equipment that was all sitting at ringside to retain yet again. His next title defense came 2 months later at Clash of the Castle with Drew McIntyre returning home. And it looked like McIntyre did indeed have the championship won after he landed both a spear and a claymore on Reigns, but as McIntyre pinned Reigns, Solo Sikoa made his main roster debut and pulled the referee's legs out from under him and to the floor. Sikoa then hanged McIntyre's neck on the top rope, allowing Reigns to land a spear and again retain with bloodline help. And 2 months later, after no more title defenses, we get to Crown Jewel in November of 2022. The Usos did make their way to ringside and interacted with Logan Paul's goons, as always seems to happen. But Jake Paul also showed up to help take down the Usos without involving himself in the actual match between the competitors. But Solo Sikoa then came out of the back and looked for Jake Paul, but the Usos then popped back up behind Jake. At this point, Logan had to take his eyes off of Roman and flip onto both Usos to help rescue his brother. However, as soon as Logan made his way right back into the ring, Reigns was there for a spear and got the win. And with no more title defenses since November, we go to the Royal Rumble in January of 2023, where Reigns pushed Owens into the referee that knocked him out, but Owens was still in good shape and landed a pop-up powerbomb that hurt Reigns so much that he was pinned for well over 3 seconds, and even with a delayed count, Michael Cole himself still counted 2-5 before KO got off of Reigns because there was no reason to be on him as the ref was injured. During this time, however, Reigns recovered and hit a low blow on KO and then had Sami Zayn, the honorary Uce, hand Reigns a steel chair, which initially backfired, but Reigns still turned the tables and brutalized Owens. However, after Owens finally was pinned, the Bloodline then used the chair and kept attacking Owens after handcuffing him to the ropes before Roman made Zayn hit Owens with the steel chair to earn his spot officially in the Bloodline. Fortunately, however, for everyone, Sami finally had enough and instead turned on Roman, slamming that steel chair into Reigns' back. But that, of course, took us to the Elimination Chamber just a few weeks later in February 2023, when Zayn now took on Reigns in Montreal for the championship. Well, this time the ref got involved yet again as Reigns backed Zayn into the corner and then landed several elbows against both Zayn and the ref causing the ref to go down yet again. Zayn, however, immediately hit Roman with a haluva kick and covered him up yet again, and the crowd even got to a 6 count before Zayn got off of Reigns because, again, no ref. At that point, Jimmy Uso hits 3 super kicks and an Uso splash on Sami Zayn. However, Zayn somehow recovered, and just 2 minutes later, Jimmy again had to distract Sami, and it allowed Reigns to hit a spear. Zayn somehow kicked out of that and the match continued, but Roman then Superman punched the referee, being the second time in this one match that the ref went down, and Heyman handed Reigns a steel chair when, before he was able to use it, Jey Uso got in the way to stop Roman. However, Zayn then accidentally speared Jey, and it allowed Reigns to hit Zayn with 6 chair shots before he would go on to win the match. Well, that took us to WrestleMania 39, 2 months later, without any more title defenses. And of course, he took on Cody Rhodes for the first time. And early on, Solo distracted Rhodes 3 different times. First, hitting him with a steel chair to the ribs, then grabbing his feet, and then a third time he whipped him with a belt in his back. And this third attack finally got Sikoa ejected from ringside. Much later in the match, Roman Reigns was caught in a figure 4 by Rhodes, and it appeared that Reigns tapped 7 or 8 times during this hold, but the referee never called for the submission. The ref clearly blew it in this situation when it was clear that Reigns was tapping. But the match continued, and of course, the Usos then came in and double super kicked and then landed a 1D on Rhodes. However, Rhodes somehow survived this one, but just when it looked like Cody Rhodes had the match won after hitting 2 crossroads, he went for a third, but as Paul Heyman distracted the referee, Solo Sikoa came back out yet again, landed a Samoan spike, and Reigns finished it off to win yet again. Well, the next night, Roman Reigns actually decided to show up, but this time he was not defending his undisputed WWE Universal Championship. He was going after the Tag Team Championships against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Well, in this one, Reigns speared the referee yet again, knocking him out, which allowed the Usos to come to ringside and attack Kevin Owens, landing a double super kick on him, and then going into the ring where they then both hit separate super kicks on Sami. Fortunately, minutes later, Jimmy Uso had seen enough and he turned his back on Roman with super kicks of his own. So fortunately, KO hit a stunner and Zayn hit the haluva kick on Sikoa to retain the tag team titles and leave Roman Reigns looking awfully sad. So finally, Reigns defends his title at SummerSlam, aka 4 months after his last title defense at WrestleMania. This time it was against Jey Uso for yet again turning on the bloodline. Well, Jey and Roman were fighting in the crowd when Solo came out of nowhere and then decided to attack Jey, hitting a spinning Solo through a table in the crowd. Sikoa then dragged and carried Jey back into the ring and landed yet another spinning Solo. A few minutes later, after Jey looked like he was taking control at ringside, Sikoa landed a super kick out of nowhere that Jey obviously did not see, and then punched him just a minute later to yet again put a halt to a comeback effort. However, Jey still had something left in him, and at the end of the match, Jey hit both a spear and a splash on Roman, but Jimmy Uso turned on his own brother and pulled Jey off of Roman as he was going for the pin, and Jimmy then hit Jey with a super kick, and threw him back into the ring, where Roman, looking awfully shocked at this, hit a spear through a table set up in the ring and somehow retained the title to remain the Tribal Chief. Then we wait 3 more months for another Roman Reigns title defense, where he finally defended it at Crown Jewel against LA Knight. Well, in this one, Sikoa went to the ramp where officials told him to go back to the locker room, but the ref was distracted by Solo, so this allowed Jimmy Uso to be at ringside and pull Roman underneath the ropes to get away from Knight. Well, Knight saw this and was none too pleased by it, so he grabbed Jimmy, but Roman had recovered enough to Superman punch Knight right here and then spear him in the ring. Somehow, however, Knight kicked out and the match continued. So, several minutes later, Knight landed the BFT on Reigns, but Jimmy put Reigns' foot on the bottom rope to stop the count when Reigns did not move and would have been pinned for the 3 count. So Knight was not too pleased by Jimmy yet again and went after him and even put him through the announce table with a slide slam. However, this gave Roman the time to recover and spear Knight through the barricade at ringside and then throw him back into the ring to spear him once more to retain the title. And then almost 3 months later, he finally defends at the Royal Rumble in January 2024, but not before Nick Aldis had to step in, as Reigns and the Bloodline continually tried to interfere in #1 contenders matches involving AJ Styles, LA Knight, and Randy Orton. However, Aldis put a stop to this and said that Reigns would have to defend against all 3 men in a fatal 4-way. Well, Reigns ended up just having a lot of luck here during this match, as LA Knight superplexed AJ Styles off of the top rope, and then Knight BFT'd Roman Reigns. But Styles was wobbling all over the place and just happened to fall on top of Knight as he was going for the pin to break the count when Reigns did not move as he was being counted out. Minutes later, Orton then was able to RKO Reigns, but Sikoa grabbed his legs and pulled the ref out onto the floor. At that point, Sikoa hit a Samoan spike on Orton and then another one on Knight, where he pulled Knight on top of Orton, which again looked like it should have been a pin in the same way that WrestleMania 37 should have been a pin, but Corey Graves said that both men had their shoulders on the mat, so the ref, who had recovered at that point, was not able to count. Nonetheless, AJ Styles got caught on the rope as he was attempting to perform a phenomenal forearm, and Reigns ended up hitting a spear to win the match. And finally, we get to WrestleMania Night 1, where we had a tag match between the Bloodline with Reigns and The Rock against Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes to determine if Reigns would face Rhodes the next night in Bloodline Rules or in just a traditional one-on-one match. Well, during this match, The Rock berated the ref and said that if he counts, he would be fired. So Rock obviously used his authority as a board member for WWE so that the ref would not be able to stop the Bloodline from doing whatever they wanted to win the match. And we're not going to go through that match because, of course, there was a lot going on. Needless to say, the Bloodline won because they were allowed to do whatever they wanted during this match. Which took us finally to WrestleMania 40 Night 2, April 7th, 2024, when Reigns had no title defenses for 2 months. Well, Rhodes looked like he might win the match fairly early on, as he hit a crossroads on Reigns and picked him up for a second, but Jimmy Uso came out of the crowd and hit Rhodes with a super kick and then held up Rhodes so that Reigns could land a Superman punch. Fortunately, Jey Uso came out and Jimmy was out of there. However, a little over 3 minutes later, Rhodes again got Reigns in position to win, landing 2 crossroads. but Sikoa then came in and landed a Samoan spike, and then those two performed their team maneuver with a spear Samoan spike combo that one would think would have been enough to pin Rhodes, but not on this particular night, as Rhodes somehow found a way to kick out. Well, from there we had all kinds of cameo performances, including The Rock coming out to help the Bloodline. However, he was not able to land any blows onto Rhodes. So finally, after all the smoke had cleared, a chair sat in the ring, and instead of Reigns using it against Rhodes, he saw Seth Rollins and decided to let his emotions get the best of him, as they had at the Royal Rumble a couple years ago, and he hit Rollins in the back with that steel chair, which finally, after long last 1,316 days, allowed Cody Rhodes to hit 3 crossroads and finally put an end to all of our suffering. So that finally takes us to SummerSlam. As we said, all 45 other people on the WrestleMania card had appeared on WWE TV since WrestleMania, except for Roman Reigns. So let's talk about what it finally took for Reigns to do something here. Well, obviously he showed up in Cleveland, which was strange enough for us to see that he actually got up off of his couch, but Rhodes landed 2 crossroads on Solo Sikoa and looked like he was going to win the match when Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa came to rescue him. But did Reigns do anything about this? No, he did not. Instead, 2 guys that were injured had to do something. First, Kevin Owens tried to make a save, but he was overwhelmed. So Randy Orton had to return as well from his injury, and fortunately at that point, both of them landed an RKO and a stunner and took Tonga and Loa away from the ring. So, all fair yet again, when Rhodes was then able to land 2 more crossroads on Sikoa, but Jacob Fatu then came out of the crowd and took care of Rhodes, including a splash through the table. But that splash did indeed not quite land correctly, such that Fatu was injured and was unable to do anything about it. So did Reigns say at that point he was coming out to do something about it? Nope, it looked like he was pretty much resigned to letting the Bloodline win, as Sikoa came back in to land a splash. But did Roman do anything about it at that point? No, he did not. He instead let Sikoa go for the Samoan spike, which Rhodes miraculously avoided by merely crumpling over to the ground. But Sikoa picked him up to try again, and only at that point did Rhodes muster enough energy to avoid it and eventually counter with a super Cody cutter. Now both men were on the ground and out, and finally at this point Roman Reigns said, maybe I can actually do something about this match. It looks like Sikoa is actually pretty well done and out right now, so I guess I can actually come back and put a stop to this. So with both men down, he knew he would not be attacked by either party, so he could just waltz in and do whatever he want, which he did by hitting a Superman punch and then a spear on Sikoa, leaving the ring to allow Rhodes to hit the crossroads and win the match. So Roman Reigns, even in the most cowardly fashion here, allowed 5 men to enter the ring before he finally decided to show up after the 2 combatants were pretty much down and out. Truly cowardly and pathetic, as we just said. But what could we expect, because all 11 of his final title matches were won with interference by the Bloodline, and about half of those also needed the referee to go down and out before they could take advantage. So why would we expect anything else? It's not like the Bloodline didn't do anything nefarious before those 11 matches either. And of course, as we said, he was fraudulent from day one by entering a match 10 minutes into it after the ring had already been broken. So needless to say, Roman Reigns every single step of the way was a terrible WWE champion. And let's hope that he goes right back home to sit on the couch and never returns. So there you have it. That's a question of the week, if I ever saw one. So I'm Dr. O'Kay, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.